Hello and welcome back. It is my pleasure to join you again on another episode. Today's journey takes us to the far-flung reaches of the snow-capped peaks of the north. Somewhere beyond those capped hills lies, rather out of place, modern-day city, looking as if from 1999. Within that city, a young woman has nightmares of an Ocean Palace disaster. But unfortunately, due to her time as part of an intergalactic time and space devouring entity of pure malice, she forgot about all that. All she knows is that Mother Brain's time refugee program is the only explanation she was given for why she appeared in this day and age. And when she goes out on Halloween, she has the compulsion to dye her hair purple. Once as Princess Schala harbored the refugees of Algeti, this Schala, too, works with those disenfranchised by the two kaiju rampaging through the city. Mother Brain seems to be unable to stop the warring behemoths of the dragon god and something that we've never seen before. Basically a Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Super Avatar Ultra Zord of Fate's Avatar. I don't know what this thing is. Do you? I never seen it before. Just this one random video at the end of Chrono Cross. But this is one of the most interesting loose ends that's out there, I think. And so that's where we're picking up today. Now, as far as it being snowy and up in the north, that's not required. I'm not sure where that came from. Sometimes it was probably like this map that made me think that it had to be snowy and in the north. But anyway, I'm imagining that once you get to the break, there's this snowier region in the north. And that's going to be your 1999. But actually, as we discussed earlier, it's an isolated space-time, which would be similar to Dinopolis. This is actually pulled in from another timeline, as Dinopolis was, by the planet. So this is sort of the result of anti-annihilation energy. But for our purposes, imagine you essentially have a city from 1999 in the break, which is actually not so far-fetched considering it's like a patchwork quilt of many, many different times and localities. But this one is special in that it's, would it be special? I don't even know. Compared to the rest, it might just be the same. At any rate, somewhere out there, there's a city. And as we saw from the video, let's just go through the video real quick. Bet you didn't even know that was a video, but that was pre-recorded. All right, so we know that there's different ways you can start the game. This is not too important at the moment, but let's just say for Shala's story, we'll get to the Schala start scenario later, but for now, imagine that you've defeated the Vision Serpent and you've gotten into the break. And essentially you're kind of at the end game. Like you can just continue, you can play the game as intended from this point on. Here is essentially your end game. All right. It would be like a territory capture, map curation, combat engine, which is essentially the game. That's what we want. We don't want Chrono Trigger 2/Chrono Trigger. We don't want the third game in the series to add too much more to the storyline. We want to resolve things and we want to enjoy what made Chrono Trigger so great, which is just the gameplay. So keep in mind, most of this would be sort of a, I don't want to say infinite, but I do want to say infinite gameplay of capture the zones and curation of your map. And I will put map with an S. I will say maps because due to like dimensional mechanics and stuff, you could just flip over to another map at any time. So anyway, you're in this zone, but there's a couple things that the Chrono Trigger fan who returns to the series might want, which first of all is going to definitely be playable Schala. Like, who doesn't want that? And second of all is going to be to explore the game in its entirety. So it's like I said, you've got your three optional chapters before you get to the break for the three guys, but then you face the Vision Serpent, and then you're into the end game. But here's where Schala comes in, Nation of Steel. So if you head to the 1999 ISO time space in the north, as we just talked about, you will find that after our battle with the Vision Serpent, I might have something for this. Okay, in Chrono Cross, it's stated that the Dragon God Surge faced was only a projection. The real Dragon God was consumed long ago by Lavos in the darkness beyond time. Okay. So that means that after you defeat the Time Devourer, you might potentially be free in there. I don't know if consumed means like digested and destroyed or simply imprisoned. We're going to go with the idea that in the Broken Antiquity, Fate's petri dish of Singing Mountain allowed there to be a dragon god. The dragon god, the Reptites / Dragonians, actually. Oop, what happened? What happened to my pointer, man? The Dragonians developed the tech to root the dragon god in the darkness beyond time. They know that that's like a failsafe. That's a place where no one's gonna, for whatever reason, the dragon god is rooted in the darkness beyond time. So we're going to go with when Surge defeats the Time Devourer, the dragon god is set free in the darkness beyond time. That might be irrelevant. Okay, now, different topic. Fate feels alone and deserted when Pico abandons her in the break, and he goes to the darkness beyond time. So because she's like basically hooked on frozen flame juice, she's kind of like views Pico as her god, dad, progenitor, for sure, something like that. She loves Pico because she loves the frozen flame. That is her main thing. So when she goes crazy and starts time crashing all of these Lavos positive space times into Broken Antiquity, she soon realizes that there's no way she can maintain that. So this is her kind of going crazy. I don't know what this is. This is just kind of a, creepy images of fate. There she is, totally powered up by the frozen flame and weirdly ungodly inhuman. So anyway, so she starts doing all of these time crashes into Broken Antiquity and soon realizes that she needs there's no way that the Earth can handle it. So she's going to enslave the dragon god so that she can terraform the land, because he controls all of nature and stuff, right? The dragon god has power over nature, so she can basically modify the land to accommodate her time crashes. What I'm explaining is all old hat. We already know this. We know how the Vision Serpent was formed, but when you defeat it, then that severs her control over him. So let's go back to this one. And let's talk about this again. Up here in 1999, you've got a modern day city, which comes from the end of Chrono Cross. This is what we were left with at the end of Chrono Cross. We've got Schala walking through a city. There she goes, walking by some clocks. Very apropos, given that the series is all about time and junk. And then we have this scandalous naked shot of Surge, which I don't know what that's about. But anyway, he's smiling at her, and she's like walking up a hill. And then what is she doing? Looking. And then she's walking on the railroad tracks. Okay. All right. I see you, Schala, out there just walking on the railroad tracks after Chrono Cross. What does that mean? What does that mean? Then you're standing in the traffic. No one's asking you if you're okay, but that's fine. And you are holding an astral amulet and looking into the distance. So let's say that Schala ended up here in what could be a thriving 1999. Okay? And then, as soon as you defeat the Vision Serpent, you have, they split. The Vision Serpent escapes Lavos and goes to, no, I'm sorry. The Vision Serpent, the Dragon God escapes Fate's control and goes to this area where they start to fight. So now you have these two huge kaiju rampaging through the city, fighting each other. All right. And Schala is like, similar to her role in Algeti when she was like protecting the refugees there. She's basically trying to make sure that, she can protect people from the crazy rampaging dragon god. And at the same time, Mother Brain is around. This would be the advent of Mother Brain. So it's not a villain. She's not a villain. She is, at the earliest stages of Mother Brain's life cycle, she was, a force for human protection and stuff. So there's Mother Brain in this scenario as well, which brings me to the complicated mechanics of what would Fate be like? What would an interaction between Fate and Mother Brain be like? This is all unexplored, but I sort of imagine that Fate would like assimilate her with just advanced programming and advanced. Fate was sort of a souped up Mother Brain without the maternal instinct. So I imagine that Fate would just kind of like absorb her. I don't know. This is all stuff. This is unexplored territory. This is very loosey goosey. But the reason that I'm bringing it up is because if you choose to go into this side quest, you will basically be able to A, recruit Schala and, deal with her storyline, and B, affect the overworld in one of two ways. All right, so this would be Story Gate 2. War of the Jealous Gods, aka the Warring Dyad. You split the Vision Serpent and Fate lost control of her slave, the Dragon God. Now they fight again, an entire population at the mercy of their destruction. The outcome will forever change the break. Will you take a side in the War of the Jealous Gods? So, let's just address this real quick. If Fate wins, she's going to take control of the Dragon God again? Or would the Dragon God just be permanently eliminated? Hard to say. I kind of feel like Fate would want to enslave the Dragon God again to continue the time crashes. I'm not sure. This is all kind of unexplored territory for me, but I do know that
if Fate wins, you are going to revert. The records of Fate will become active again in the break. So you're going to revert to a traditional save mechanic. All right, so this gets into the whole thing about like how do you want to play your infinite territory acquisition game, right? There's two styles. When you first get to the break, it's going to switch to like an Animal Crossing save style. Okay, where there's no save points. It's just everything you do is sort of permanent and recorded. So that gives you the, that really hammers home the theme of letting the past go and sort of like the theme of loss and, you know, the one-time thing being what happens. The way it goes is the way it goes. If you want to play again, feel free to reset. But you cannot change your fate. You cannot change what has happened. So that would be with the sort of Animal Crossing save mechanic where you don't save your game at all. Just whatever you do is done. And every time you load up your game, it's going to go back to exactly the moment you left off. However, that has its advantages and disadvantages, obviously. However, if you defeat Fate, if you defeat the Dragon God and Fate wins this battle, then your overworld is going to change to a traditional save format where you can use like the records as save points. So this way you have a little bit more flexibility with your game. And like if you want to go on a crazy mission and Frog doesn't make it back, then you can just, reset to the last point you saved. So that's one advantage. Now, the other side is if the Dragon God wins. Now, this one is pretty, I would say, insane. I'll say insane. I don't have a problem saying that. So let's take a look at what might happen if the Dragon God wins. There we go. If the Dragon God defeats Fate, it will incarnate into Terra Tower and rampage across the break in kaiju fashion. So Terra Tower, let's not forget, is sort of an enigmatic structure that, at the end of Chrono Cross, it starts to undergo a transformation, which I believe is going to be shown here. This might just be it falling into the ocean and then kind of spreading its wings. Oh yeah, it just does this. But you can see that it definitely has some, this almost resembles, and I say almost, I mean almost. I wouldn't say it's even close, but there are some it is close, but not identical. There are some similarities to whatever this creature is, right? You have two huge dragons. So I was kind of thinking that maybe Terra Tower was the original body of the Dragon God that it used on the Reptite timeline. Even though it was, its true form is in the darkness beyond time, it sort of manifested into Terra Tower, because Terra Tower is described as alive at certain points as well, or at one point particular in Chrono Cross, when Kid says Terra Tower alive again. So I'm thinking that if you defeat Fate and the Dragon God is free to do what it wants, then it's going to manifest into Terra Tower, which, in case you forgot, is still hey, not that. In case you forgot, Terra Tower is still, it's in the attached, it's in 2300, which is actually not 2300, but sort of just this attached time space to the break. And so Terra Tower is in there, but it's inactive. So I'm thinking that, like, if the Dragon God wins, then you're essentially gonna have Terra Tower I guess it would start where it is here, and it would march its little booty all the way across here, and then it would come through, and then before long you would have a rampaging kaiju in the singularity. And it hates humans. Like the Dragon God believes that humans are a stain on the planet, so it's going to be attacking towns and stuff, and you'll have like this massive problem to deal with. So those are your two options. You can defeat Fate and let the Dragon God rampage, or you can defeat the Dragon God and let the get like a traditional save mechanic back. It's really up to you, but I think this really this symbolizes the themes here, because if you have, for all intents and purposes, if Fate wins, then you're kind of saying like mankind. She's a representative of mankind. So you're going to have this time-based structured save mechanic. Whereas if the Dragon God wins, you're going to have this zero time, everything is one moment, nature-based save mechanic, which personally I would gravitate towards because it doesn't matter. But the point is that you can have two different kinds of game going on based on who wins this battle. And if you never deal with it, then theoretically they would just like fight forever. And yeah, I never actually considered what happens if you never go into this plot point here. So that would be okay. Let's pull it back a minute and try and think of what to discuss next. Let's go with an easy one. We kind of talked about this last time. Let's talk about Schala. What would happen with Schala? Okay, here she is. In Broken Antiquity, Schala's powerful dreaming abilities were used to design Fate. We've talked about that before, but essentially, Pico from the planet's core was sending Zeal's most powerful dreamer, Schala, these complicated schematics, which they kept her sedated and like used her, I don't know, her dream whispers, her murmurings to like Balthazar used her instruction to recreate Fate in this alternate dimension, or in Broken Antiquity. Then what does it say? Sorry, this one is like a pretty complex topic, so my organization might be all over the place, but you have, in 1999, Mother Brain is rapidly losing control of its reason. As two gods war in the sky above, Schala protects refugees from the destruction. Alright, we're going to come back to this one, but for now I want to talk about one of the most superficial things, which is Schala's appearance. Yeah, like you can see in this cutscene, she's a regular old blonde girl. Which, I mean, it looks like she's blonde. Obviously, this is in black and white, so it's hard to say, but that doesn't look blue to me. She's pretty much blonde, right? We've talked about this before, and we're going to talk about it again. Here. Let's just watch this brief thing. Chrono Cross throws us this wild pitch of, guess what? Schala's hair is actually yellow. And it's like, well, why? Why? When in Chrono Trigger, she had blue hair. We need a theory because we need to reconcile why was freed Schala from the Time Devourer. She was blonde. And at the end of
Chrono Trigger. There she is. All right, we see Schala, right? Okay, and this picture doesn't actually show very well that she has blonde hair, but some of the other ones do. And also, we see she has blonde hair when she's attached to the Time Devourer, and also Kid has blonde hair, and she's Shala's clone. So what if the people of Zeal, the kingdom of Zeal, through whatever historical records or whatever, considered themselves to be of the Laruba persuasion, or for some reason they view the original Laruba hair as being like special or something like that. And so this ancient cultural tradition they have is just to color their hair purple in all formal ceremonies. That's my theory, to try to think of why Schala would be blonde in Chrono Cross and blue-haired in Chrono Trigger, is that the Zealians have an ancient dyeing ritual for, not dyeing, but hair dyeing ritual for whatever reason that dates back to their knowledge of the Laruba, because the Laruba also have purple hair. I don't think that's so far-fetched. So that would explain why Shala's got blonde hair natively.
Okay, so I know this is not a huge important point, but it sort of is, because what we're trying to do here is make it make sense. We have like a very, very active imagination with the original writer, Masato Kato, obviously. And we want to make Chrono Cross make as much sense as possible. So we're fitting in what we can, and at times generating ideas. So that's why I came up with this idea that maybe, for whatever reason, the Zealian royalty of the Chrono Trigger days have some kind of connection. They revere, or they something, they're the ancient Larubans, who all actually had, purple, bluish hair. So maybe it's just kind of like, or maybe it has nothing to do with the Laruba, and it's just some kind of formal dyeing. And, Shala's a princess. Throughout history, purple's been, in our timeline, purple's been, affiliated with royalty. So maybe they just dye their hair blue as like part of the, the vibe of royalty. And before we get any further, that does leave an open question, which is like, but Magus's hair is really blue. Magus has actual blue hair. So that does raise a question or two. And I've kind of thought about that quite a bit. And there's two things. Maybe the blue hair is a recessive gene, and it marks Magus as being kind of like special. Or here's another idea. Magus also has some pointy ears. Know what I'm saying? So I was kind of wondering, would it not be too far-fetched to imagine that maybe is Magus part demi-human? Was King Zeal, I guess, a demi-human? That's not super far-fetched to imagine that, some of the demi-humans look like people. Some of the demi-humans look like, way different than people. But we have with Magus a pointy-eared, blue-haired person. So either he was the result of an extremely rare birth, or pointy ears are cosmetic, or something. But the only answer I can kind of imagine is that, like, King Zeal was a demi-human. Or whoever whoever Magus's father was a demi-human. Because I know that well, I've heard that in the Japanese translation, it's implied that they might be half siblings, Janice and Schala. I don't really know. I'm not going with that because I don't know enough about the Japanese translation. I'd love to hear about it, but there's a chance that Magus is a demi-human because he's got pointy ears and blue hair. So let's put the purple hair, blue hair thing to rest now, and we're going to say that in this particular scenario, in this particular story, the reason why Shala's hair was purple in Chrono Trigger and blonde in Chrono Cross is because she's naturally a blonde person, but the the customs of Zeal dictate that royalty or whatever dyes their hair the ancient Laruban purple. I don't know, man. I'm just spitballing here. I've really talked a lot about the hair now, but I do want it. It's all to explain this tiny part where we have this representation of Schala that would be like, she doesn't know why. It says on Halloween she has the compulsion. She lives in 1999, as we saw in Chrono Cross. She has the compulsion to dye her hair purple on Halloween. I don't know what that's all about. It could just be like, when she goes to formal events. Or maybe she just has a compulsion to dye her hair purple. I don't really know, man. These are just some ideas. But what the important thing is that we want to make it make sense. So that's why I'm spending all this time, discussing the nuances of the hair. But we're done with that now. Amazing. So let's talk more about what it would actually be like when you get to the Warring
Chrono
Dyad.
Cross throws us this wild pitch of, guess what? Shala's hair is actually yellow. And it's like, well, why?
Don't listen to that. Let's see, what did we actually want to talk about in this particular zone? We're looking at this. Okay. I think that's pretty much covered. We saw that, the ending cinematic showed her as a blonde person. So this one is pretty much done. I think we can get rid of this one and go to this one. Recruiting Schala. Okay, let's talk to the notes. Let's go to the notes. What notes do we have for Schala? The story. When the party first encounters Schala, she's not completely herself. Her time as part of the Time Devourer affected her. No kidding. After being separated from the Time Devourer, she's just as lost as any other, her memory also erased. However, she retains fragments and has more glimpses than anyone else of the truth. Okay, so I think there's some evidence to support the fact that pretty much everyone who faces the Time Devourer loses their memory. So let's just say that, and I hear you saying that, well, like, in Chrono Trigger DS, the party faces the Dream Devourer and they retain their memory. But who's to say they do? We don't really know. Like, maybe the shades that you can encounter in Chrono Trigger DS are actually the versions of yourself that faced the Time Devourer and then lost themselves. It's complicated, but we're going to say that basically Surge lost his whole recollection of events. And we're going to say Gil and also, or excuse me, Guile / Gil / Magus and Glenn, they faced the Time Devourer. They all lost their memory with Surge. And also Schala. She lost her memory of the whole event. Schala has huge guilt issues plagued by nightmares of the Ocean Palace, Fall of Zeal, and everything after. I'm pretty sure that one time I read that Masato Kato's kind of like vision for Schala later on would be that she's stuck on the Ocean Palace. She's plagued by nightmares of it. and she feels guilty for the fall of Zeal. She has visions of her journey to the darkness beyond time and the magnetic storm of 1006. This is her returning point, the storm, the ocean palace. She dwells there. So this, young lady in 1999 has got her own night terrors. She's got those kind of flashbacks of the ocean palace. She feels guilt. But despite all that, Schala has not lost her underlying character. I'll just let this play while I read the notes. She has not lost her underlying character. In 1999, she follows a strange kind of mysticism based on the balanced forces of the universe. Though she does not remember or know directly of the gurus, she's aware of the forces they represent. This is the wisdom Schala lays down to the party and her primary mindset, although she knows not the finer details of her past. So she's trying to balance the forces of the gurus in 1999, subconsciously acting out the function of all three gurus. However, she sees trouble. As my good friend Rodi Rigo asks, can humans exist in harmony with the planet? These questions linger for her. She explains why the warring Dyad... Get back to that. She explains why the warring Dyad is destroying their world physically, but also lays down the reasons why humans were already out of sync with life, time, and reason, which are the three forces. So, even though she's like helping people in this area, while the massive kaiju are rampaging through the sky above and through the city, fighting each other because they hate each other until all eternity, although she protects the people as a reflection of her role in Algeti, before Chrono Trigger happened, she was kind of like, the NPCs in Algeti and Chrono Trigger talk about how nice Schala was and blah, blah, blah. So she used to help them too. She wonders if the War of the Jealous Gods is not a purification element and necessary for the planet. So this is where we meet Schala. She's basically like, you know what, I'm going to protect these people, but maybe this is our just desserts because time, life, and reason are completely out of balance in this society. And so I'm not surprised that suddenly we have like these massive planetary issues to deal with because something needs balance. So she's kind of, remember, we need character growth. So what you want to start with is a Schala who is A, cynical, B, not really remembering her past, but also C, maintaining, her character. She's a good person at heart. She helps other people, and she's super gifted with magical abilities. Okay, let's move on to this part, encountering her. Okay. Marl and the party explain to her what happened in Chrono Trigger, and she's sorry for not remembering. Now, before you get angry, I think that there's got to be a way for memory to be restored so that everyone can sort of exist in the Chrono Trigger, headspace together. We don't want Guile and Surge and Robo and Schala to all have their memory of the original adventure permanently erased. That's just too crushing, Even though the theme is let the past go, we're not monsters here. We're trying to return to the glory of Chrono Trigger, and at some point that means that everyone's gonna, remember what happened, be themselves. It's up in the air. This is all spitballing, like I mentioned. Let's continue. Schala says if she saved them before, it's because of her concern for all peoples, and she must have believed the party stood for the sacred principles of time, life, and reason, or were agents of them. She won't go with them now, but senses they are still on the side of balance and surrenders the astral amulet. The party can return later to recruit her. This is all honestly just notes. I haven't really thought through this part too much. These are original ideas. So let's continue just reviewing the notes and seeing what it says. I do know some things are set in stone, but I'm just trying to open up a discussion here, really. I'd love to hear your ideas, and maybe we could make this work. But in this case, we have old Chrono, or Surge can get Schala. Well, that is very that's open-ended and not concrete, so we'll keep that in the back of our mind and continue reading. Schala will only join the party if the war between Fate and the Dragon God is resolved and the player returns with Chrono in the party. All right. The first part is definitely true. We can only get Schala to join the party if this plot point is resolved. Like, there's no way she would leave the people of Algeti, or excuse me, the people of 1999, whatever this area is. I want to guess that this city is, since Mother Brain is there, it could be what eventually became Genodome. I'm not really sure which part of 1999 this would be. But we'll get to that later. Schala witnessed Chrono's sacrifice. Oh, my point is, she's not gonna join the party and go running around in the break with you unless the people here are safe. So you have to resolve this plot point. Either the Dragon God wins, Fate wins, or maybe you can eliminate them both. I don't really know, man. I haven't made the game. I'm just talking about it, and some ideas here. Schala witnessed Chrono's sacrifice, said his name after she sent his friends to safety, and seeing him die. At the Ocean Palace, she opened a portal to send them on their quest to find Balthazar and said his name again. This sacrifice was a big moment for her and helped put to bed her own concerns that humanity was inherently bad. I think that's an interesting point. During the Ocean Palace disaster, like, if you have a Schala who already, in Chrono Trigger, let's go back to that. In Chrono Trigger, Schala was already kind of like, she was not stupid. She sees, sort of the manipulative practices of her mother, and she sees all kinds of, BS happening. So I think it's not. It's not too far-fetched to think that maybe she was already kind of down on humanity to begin with. She's like, man, the people in charge only want to extract energy from Lavos. This is the pits. So when she sees Chrono, make his sacrifice, that is, that's a big point for her. In some ways, she realizes that maybe humans aren't all bad. And Chrono is a great example of that. So seeing Chrono triggers her memories and shakes the dust off her reticent attitude. So recruiting Schala involves in some way resolving the issue between the Dragon God and Fate, moving the conflict away from the city where her people are being attacked, and maybe it's just extra and unnecessary to have Chrono or Surge or whoever with you. I mean, if she forgot her memory, she forgot her memory. She's not going to remember them anyway, right? But with Surge, she does have like a weird connection. So it's something to think about. What led Schala to hear a baby's cries 13,000 years away? Perhaps we'll never understand the mysterious connection between Schala and Surge. We are all but pawns in the grand play till the final curtain falls on Zerv N. I did not make that up. Remember, that's at the end of Chrono Cross. So let's go to recruiting. When the party finally recruits Schala, she's OP. She serves as a key to living through higher difficulty zones, a growing misanthropy, which is helped to be quelled by her adventures with the party. That's why she needs Chrono to be recruited. That is grain of salt territory. Don't even take that to be a real thing. I remember hearing one time that reading about a part of Metroid, one of the Metroid games, and someone said it was super satisfying to try to get into this area that was super difficult, and then Samus gets upgraded once you get in there, and then it's really, really satisfying to go out and just completely wreck all of the enemies that were giving you such a hard time on the way in. So I was kind of getting similar vibes for Schala. Maybe it's really hard to get to her, and then when you exit with her, she's just, you can see that, okay, this character is very, very strong. I mean, we have to make Schala and Magus OP, at least at first, because, I mean, they're like the greatest magic used to ever live. They're pivotal to the plot. And you don't want to just have Schala be like another, she's no mere mortal. She's a trans-dimensional perfect goddess. So at the beginning at least, let's say that when she joined, she's like, 20 levels above your party. But also her abilities are what make her stand out. Eventually, her strength and magic stats are going to just be double stars like everyone else. But extremely hard to get in and rescue Schala, but then getting out is mad fun because you can wreck enemies who were so challenging before. Okay, talked about that. She's a shadow type with extremely powerful magic which can affect time and space. We've seen that before. Let me know if you have any sort of like support or ideas about what magic type she would be, but if we're in this particular plotline, if we're going with the idea that maybe Schala is manipulating time and space similar to Magus, she's probably shadow magic as he is. She's a shadow type with extremely powerful, okay, we read that. Now you can run around with Schala, dropping time bombs and being hella powerful, unlock pink pyramids in the break, and even go to more difficult parts of the game to level up your other characters too. That's your traditional playthrough. And when I talk about the pink pyramids, we're talking about these. She sealed a gate in Chrono Trigger, but now when you see all of these gates that have been sealed in the break, Schala or Magus, if you recruit him, are your ticket to unlocking these, which opens up a whole nother, obviously opens up a lot more gameplay opportunity. Okay, so now let's talk about the mechanics, Shala's mechanics. For sure, we want to see a double tech with her and Magus. 100%. This has to be a thing. This was a tech that someone put forth on Reddit. So shout outs to whoever thought of this Umbra tech. I thought I had the credit here, but I don't. Sorry. This. Why is that not coming up? Okay, let's just move on. There's this one. There's Black Wind, which I apologize for the janky looking animation on this one. But this is a ripped off from Radical Dreamers, where Gil actually casts Black Wind at one point, and it's a bunch of razor blades. It's described as razor blades. But once again, when you hear all this stuff, it's not me just making it up. As a respectful fan, I would never just have the balls to make something up like what the Black Wind spell would be like, but it's already canonized. It was in Radical Dreamers, like razor blades. So I thought, let's see if we could make that look, look real in some Chrono Trigger format. So, back to what we were talking about before. I imagine that if you recruit Schala, she's gonna have blonde hair and not be wearing the Zelian royal robes. She'd probably look a lot like Kid, honestly, except for with like 1999 gear on. So, that might, not be what people had in mind when they wanted playable Schala, and I understand that totally, because this purple dress, blue-haired Schala is sort of the one that we're all attached to, Chrono Trigger. So, I guess there's like wardrobe changes? I don't know, dude. There's definitely a way to get this classic Schala. Gotta be. 100%. She's also got this tech, whatever this is. This was another one from Andy Makir. He had the idea of this triple tech between her and Isla and Princess Nadia. So that's another potential tech that we've talked about. As we've seen from this, she would be like a dagger wielding type. Because Kid is a dagger wielding type? I don't know. I guess in reality she might be like a bare-handed. It's hard to say what kind of weapon Schala would use, but because Kid uses a dagger, I just put it down as a dagger type. I'm pretty sure that I saw another Reddit post that had the idea of Schala having like different jewels that you could put into an orb, but maybe you could put them on a dagger to change her mechanics. To me, that sounds cool, not complicated. Anyway, we're going with she's got the dagger thing going on. Let me just compose my thoughts and then come back. So here are some images by Itzura of her at the end of Chrono Cross, as we saw. You know, he even kept the passing of the clocks area, or he or she. Let's see what we got. Here's Weird Naked Surge again. Okay. It's been a while since I played Chrono Cross, so I don't know if that naked cutscene was in any other part of the game, but it's funny that when you're talking about Schala, would she just be imagining Surge naked? I don't. This cutscene is hilarious. But anyway, I just wanted to point out this this representation of Schala is incredibly close to what's seen at the end of Chrono Cross, and so it's just weird to think that this is probably closer to her true appearance than what we saw in Chrono Trigger. But yeah, cool artwork nonetheless. And I do remember now what I wanted to say. We're talking back to her, like back to the mechanics of what she would be like. She's like Magus. She's a shadow type. But she has access to the single target attacks that he lacks. Okay. Maybe with a healing spell and a buff thrown in for good measure. That was a quote from someone on Reddit. Remember, we're going with the collective unconscious theory here, which means that all the ideas that we need are already out there. I'm not making them up, I'm just grabbing them and putting them together. So when I see someone going into detail about what Schala would be like, whatever resonates with me, I'm going to put up on this project. He's got a double tap with Magus. We covered that. Certainly got that part covered. Probably has several double attacks. Schala and Magus dual attacks are the strongest in the game. Even Specchio is impressed. Okay. Well, Specchio was impressed just with Magus, so he's definitely going to be impressed. But we need to get into what makes Schala truly unique. What is the true amazing potential of the transdimensional, center of the universe, Schala? Which, if you think about the Chrono Trigger games, it's either Lavos and Schala and Magus are like the core of the... Well, it's going to be Lavos, but as far as humans go, your most influential humans are Schala and Magus. So, she can transport you through time and space. Imagine if you recruited Schala and suddenly, the epoch is still useful, but, you don't really need it. Because Schala can just warp you wherever she wants to warp you. We've seen it before. It's not like it's out of character for her to just, okay, bye. So we're going to say that recruiting Schala leads to insane potential for map movement, time and space traversal. She's just OP like that. So a lot of the characters have a tool function, so this would be like that. Not only is Schala a playable character, but she's also a game tool, which is transport. She basically makes the epoch obsolete. However, in a multi-party game where you have multiple parties traveling the map, the party that's with her is able to use her abilities to traverse time and space, but another party could use the epoch. I'm not trying to get rid of the epoch. I'm not trying to get rid of traditional methods for getting around the map. and all the Chrono Trigger stuff that we like, including telepods and Epoch, but Schala's got the ability to warp where other characters don't. Now, there's kind of like you have Kid, who's a clone of Schala, who I imagine at some point can learn these abilities as well. And then Magus, who, if he was fully powered up, could probably also do the same. But for now, Schala is unique in that way. But here's what really, really brings her to the forefront of relevance. And that is the fact that once you unlock Schala, you can basically set the parameters of your game. So imagine that you wanted to start a new game plus, and you wanted like the war with the Dragon God to be finished already. All of the like moving parts in the game, you could just go to a menu and tick them all off how you wanted, and you could start a new game plus exactly how you wanted with all the conditions laid out, because having Schala gives you that, sort of OP ability to start a new game how you want. And she just warps you away to the beginning of the game, and then you've got, a customized playthrough, which is sort of like unlocking custom mode. Once you've got Schala in your party, you can start a new game with many, many different tweaks to the way that it goes, because she can basically put you on any timeline and any reality. But how does that translate into a gameplay mechanic? She can, choose your options. Choose your advanced options menu for a new game plus. She can also drop enemies into random portals to nowhere. That sounds pretty sweet. You can do magnetic storms when powered up. What would this do? I don't know. Magnetic storms. She's done one in 1006. She did that from the Darkness Beyond Time. Had huge plot, implications. After getting Schala, Magus, or an unlocked Kid, players are finally able to break the seal in the Darkness Beyond Time, where Pico is truly based. These characters they can go to the DBT directly. That is true, I would say, with a fully powered up. When I say unlocked Kid, it's like there are some parameters. Kid is a far, far, far cry from Schala, right? But if you developed her character enough, then theoretically she'd be able to match Schala because she's like a clone of Schala. So it would take a lot of character development, but theoretically Schala, Magus, or Kid would be able to transport the party to the Darkness Beyond Time as well. However, as we mentioned in one of the previous broadcasts, if you have two items from, like the Chrono Cross was made by mashing together the Tear of Fate and the Tear of Love, I think. And I read that those two were... The reason the Chrono Cross fusion occurred was because they were the same item from different dimensions? Something like that. So I was thinking, okay, if you had the two Einlancers, if you had an Einlancer or a pendant from two different dimensions and you equipped those simultaneously, then you'd get a Chrono Cross in your inventory, and the Chrono Cross would be able to take you directly to the Darkness Beyond Time as well. So using Schala, her abilities to get to the Darkness Beyond Time is not the only way to get there, but it would be a way to get there. Okay, then she can adjust game properties. Yeah, that's down here. That we just talked about that. She's the last Arbiter to be recruited. Schala tweaks the gameplay. You can set conditions for a new game plus. So then she just does her little warp thing, and you start a new game plus, but this time, thanks to Schala, you have you know, you're sort of like in the reality, aka you have the options set how you like. And they would have to line up thematically with what she could actually do. You know, it's like something we would have to look at after the game was actually developed, and you had all these conditions that you could set the map that you could set. That was kind of the one that I was thinking right away would be like, okay, imagine, you know, you could have it set so that the outcome of this battle was already decided. So you could start a new game, and then Schala would be in your party, and this would not be a factor. I don't know. It's complicated. Like I said, these are just ideas, but that's sort of where I'm going with it. Okay, and then Shala's themes. Because of her tremendous guilt, Schala is the one who benefits most from the let the past go message of the game. All right. So those are what I have for the notes on that part. However, I'd like to return briefly to this particular image. As we said before, if the dragon god wins the battle, defeats fate, it will incarnate into Terra Tower and rampage across the break in kaiju fashion. So you're thinking, well, why would I ever want that? That sounds terrible. However, power Schala up to Dark Moon Schala and take control of Terra Tower. It's great for clearing areas of the map. So what if you had this rampaging kaiju thing, but then suddenly you could control it, and it was like your home base that moved, like an airship from Final Fantasy, or the Giant of Babel from Final Fantasy IV. You know how you go inside of that, and like it's a moving fortress, but you're also inside of it. And then imagine if that was also like your airship slash map clearing super weapon. And when I say clearing the map, I mean, you know, defeating very difficult monsters to get into deep, deep portions of the map, which is similar to how summons work. All right, so now you're saying, well, dude, what in God's name is Dark Moon Schala? So let's talk about that. All right, we have these three people. And Schala created a clone of herself and sent it back to 1003? Hard to say. I'm trying to remember what year did Luca find Kid. But then Kid was already kind of like had been born. She was already like an infant, so it doesn't really matter the exact year, but I'm kind of thinking that it was 1003 when Luca found Kid. At any rate, a lot of people have often discussed the ending of Chrono Cross, and it's like, did Kid and Schala merge? Did Kid and Schala merge? Did Kid and Schala merge? And, you know, it's unresolved. It's not. The picture frame. There's a picture frame at the end of Chrono Cross that implies that Kid and Schala may have merged. And then also one of the letters is signed Schala Kid Zeal. So there's speculation that they may have merged, right? But I'm going with absolutely not. Kid and Schala did not merge. That's just weird. However, the dragon god, in the moment, or the dragons, the dragon god had been split at this time. We know from Chrono Cross that in the moment when the magnetic storm sent Chronopolis's defenses offline, the dragons came together to create a seventh dragon, which was Harl. Harley? Harl? I don't know how to say it. We say Marl. Some people say Marley. Say Harl. Some people say Harley. It's a point of contention. I don't know. If I'm going to say Marl, then I'll probably say Harl. But, and honestly, like Harley seems... Hey, wait. The part we want is right here. So, when asked, you have... It's kind of split among the fan base, the pronunciation of Marl's name. You got 189 said Marl, 133 said Marley. I know that famous speedrunner Puexel says Marley. So whatever. At any rate, I say Marl. But as far as Harl goes, I agree with the one commenter who kind of lit me up about the pronunciation of her name. I guess it should be Harley. At any rate, we're just going to call her the Dark Moon Dragon, or the Dream Dragon, because that's what she was. But the reason why the reason why this person, Harley, loved Surge so much could be, it's speculated that in the time that the dragons created... Alright, this is pretty complicated. When the dragons created Harley, they needed a human, right? So they used the template for the only human they had access to, which was Schala, because they were part of Lavos, aka Time Devourer, and so was she. So when the dragons needed to create a clone or create a human, they used the material they had, which was Schala. So you essentially have not one, but two clones of Schala out there. One created by Schala herself, and then one of them created by the dragons to be a dragon. So I was thinking, what if it's, and this is very, this would really have to be thought out quite a bit to even find out how to encounter Harl or the Dark Moon Dragon on this timeline. But what if it was not Schala and Kid who merged, but what if it was Schala and the Dark Moon Dragon who merged to create your powered up Schala? You know, like in Chrono Trigger, everyone's got to have their side quest, which makes them stronger. So what if in Chrono Break it was Schala, Shala's encounter with the Dark Moon Dragon, Harl, aka Harley, and these two actually merged. And then you get, then Schala is not only transdimensional perfect goddess, but she's also the very embodiment of like the natural forces of the planet. Well, she's not the embodiment, but she's got part of the dragon in her, the dragon god in her. Oh man. So she would be, gain like a bunch of offensive skills, and also that would be her leveled up form. But the reason I bring it up is because then if you side quested Schala, merged her with the Dream God Dragon, and she became Dark Moon Schala, because this is also the Dark Moon Dragon. Schala merges with Dark Moon Dragon. Schala becomes Dark Moon Schala. Schala has a part of the Dragon God in her. So then, if you did that, you could take control of Terra Tower, and it could become like an airship-esque, facility for the party. So that would resolve the rampaging kaiju. Suddenly you have a kaiju, or you have a huge, Terra Tower, But now you're in control because Schala has the Dark Moon Dragon in her, and it's all, she's made peace with the dragons and so forth. And thank you to Chrono 99 for this cool rendition of the Terra Tower. That's once again by Chrono 99. So, as I look at the materials that were laid out, I can see it's all very messy. We got our hands dirty today. We certainly talked about a bunch of stuff that I have absolutely no idea. Oh, hello. Sorry, I wasn't checking the chat. I always interpreted that Schala was a light type user because of the luminous seals she made and also because of her personality. Totally, can see that. It's all up for debate. I'm totally into the idea that maybe Schala is like a lightning type as well. And I'm not ruling out the fact that like there's magical spectrums, that lightning could also be able to do some kind of time stuff. I don't know if I agree that personality influences like magic type, but I could certainly see her being either lightning or a shadow. At any rate, it's really good to see you out there today, and I'm going to take this... Oh, before I leave, I do want to talk about this. Yes, this image was created with artificial intelligence, and so I know that that's kind of like gets a lot of hate, and I understand why, but I just want to justify myself. This was like right at the beginning when it first came out. I wasn't thinking of the ethical implications. I was just making stuff, and then I thought, well, this is really badass. But also, the thing is, like, Fate is an AI, so this ties in thematically, and I just thought it was a cool image. So, although there's some early instances of AI image generation scattered throughout this project, I didn't want to throw away what I had already made, but I'm not actively doing it anymore. And, that's a whole other can of worms to talk about, like, is AI image generation bad or good? But at any rate, I want to explain myself. And also kind of like point out that sometimes these like weirdly skewed and incorrect quote unquote images can look totally badass, like this one. So what was I gonna say? We finished all this. We did Schala, we did Storygate 2, we did purple hair, and we talked about why Janice might have purple hair. And then we went on an unexpected talk about AI art. But in this case, the reason I included this image, like I just said, Fate is AI. Schala had like a severe interaction with the AI. Hold on, where's that at? I think this would be the text that goes with this image. In broken antiquity, Schala's powerful dreaming abilities were used to design Fate. So I hope no one gets too offended by that. And like I said, I don't... a couple months ago, I got her... Not a couple months ago, a couple months after the whole thing started in like late 2023, the whole AI image generation thing, I got into experimenting with it. And then as it, people started to kind of protest against it, and two sides developed, I thought, yeah, it's okay to leave it out of this project, but I didn't want to throw away this one really, really cool image. But also, I don't know, the AI image generation thing is crazy. It's hard to say. Is it a tool? Is it theft? All artists are inspired by something. If it starts to replace other artists, that's obviously an issue. I think this is too big for me to discuss right now. But it's interesting. Like, for instance, when the pen was invented, did you have people screaming that, like, ew, that artwork was made with pen trash? If it's a tool, I guess the pen doesn't steal from other artists' styles. So, I don't know. Interesting to think about. I don't fall down either way, but I did want to explain to anyone who thinks that it's just total sacrilege to use AI art why I included this image. Because it looks freaking sweet. Especially, it looks freaking sweet because her eyes are janky, because her hair is janky. Like, if a person made this, I would think, wow, amazing abstract use of, shapes and stuff. Huh. I have totally expired. I've used up all of my material for today. Except for perhaps this one. Which would be... Hold on, let me just pause it. Alright, so here you have the chapters, and this one would be in chapter 4 of the intro, where Marl and Robo end up in El Nido. Explore El Nido in the Middle Ages, chapter 4, where dragons sleep. So I'm going to add some sound effects and so imagine here it would be like she finds an element. So I'll put a little sound effect for finding an item and say like she found an element, like a fire element. There she found something else. I'll adjust the speed as well. And she goes into this tent, finds an element in there, comes out, yells at Robo, get going. She startles him, she chuckles about it. He's like, all right, let's get out of here. And then they, of course, run off together. Because that's just what friends do when they're exploring. Thank you for joining me today. Sorry it got a little loosey-goosey in there some places. I hope that you enjoy your day, and I will see you next time.